I mean, I think it's going to be a one-score game. It's just going to be who makes less mistakes. When K-State loses the turnover battle, like a lot of teams, they lose frequently throughout the Chris Kleiman era. They take care of it.
They've lost every game this year where they were negative turnover margin except UT Martin, I believe.
Yeah, so you got to take care of it. Well, can't make mistakes.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Hello and welcome into another edition of Fremont. John Kurtz, Derek Young, Cole Manbeck, all with you. Final week of the regular season. It is Farmageddon, K-State at Iowa State. A lot on the line, more so for Iowa State, but a chance to play spoiler here for the Wildcats. And if that were to happen, yeah, you better be drinking your Ben Holiday bottled and bond bourbon or your 360 vodka from our friends at Holiday Distillery. Make sure you go out and stock up for your tailgates, for basketball season, when you're watching games, whatever it might be this winter. Great way to warm up, just a couple sips of Ben Holiday bottled and bond bourbon or a lot of sips. Holiday Distillery, great K-State folks who support us here on the show. So appreciate that, boys. Nice job without me. Just got done listening to all of that. How we feeling about the offense? I know you guys talked a lot about the offense. Is this going to be a get-right game? Will Cincinnati wind up being the get-right game for the rest of the season in case they winds up winning 10 games, or was that a mirage? I feel like Cole was a little bit more on the side of still being very, very skeptical about what that Cincinnati game means for the offense ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, I remain skeptical with what we saw. It's too small of a sample size for me to make any declarations that things are fixed. They ran Avery Johnson more. They said that him and DJ Giddens were healthier. It certainly looked that way. Second most rushing yards against an FBS opponent that K-State's had this season, rushing 281 yards, 7 yards per carry, second highest yards per carry average this year as well. It's obviously going to play a huge part against an Iowa State defense that really struggles to stop the run, and especially struggles to stop the quarterback run game, guys. I actually went and pulled quarterback numbers, and we'll get into that later in the show, but Iowa State's been awful when it comes to the QB run game, giving up over 8.5 or 8.2 yards per carry on the season in Big 12 play against 7 different opponents in league play. So that's going to be a big part of this game against Iowa State, is how much they run Avery Johnson. Offensive line should be able to handle Iowa State's 3-3-5 defense when it comes to the running game, because they've struggled there. But back to K-State, I just need to see more. They moved Connor Riley down to the field. They had Matt Wells down on the field, which, just as a clarifying point, Brian LePack, we had mentioned on the post-game show, he has not been in the box this year until that game. So that was one of the shifts that they made as well. They moved Brian LePack up to the coach's box, had Connor Riley, Matt Wells, both down on the field. They made some schematic changes. It's hard to read anything into it because they got up by so much that the second half game plan looked to be super conservative. Like if I was watching that, not knowing the score, I would have been very frustrated watching the way they called the second half. But I assume part of that is due to the time and score. So really nice first couple series. I don't know on the rest. We'll see where they go. We'll see how they do in Ames. We'll see how they do in the bowl game. But I'm still a proponent that change will need to be made.
Well, Cole, my frustration, real quick here with it, was just that listening to the press conference, Chris Kleiman was made it a point to be like, yeah, something I talked to Riles about. I am always searching for ways to make our football team better, et cetera, et cetera. And we had heard the rumors about, hey, maybe after the Houston game they would move Connor Riley down, and then the question is yeah, well, it clearly seemed like things went better. Now I know Cincinnati's not as good as ASU. Clearly seemed like that did help and things were better. So why did you not make the move during the bye week? Why did you wait an extra? You waited too long, it would appear, to make those changes that you're constantly on the look for. So that was my frustration listening to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Everybody thought that if they were going to make a change, they were going to make it during the bye week. You don't wait till it's too late to make the change, and they did.
Yeah, I mean, it would have made more sense during the bye week, and it sucks to say this, but you got to wonder if some of the distractions to the coaching staff had something to do with maybe not executing it at that point. Just in fortuitous timing almost in a sense, but it is what it is at this point. What I would say is I agree, too small of a sample size. The offensive line played better. It wasn't just scheme. I thought the offensive line did play better because it wasn't just because Cincinnati stunk. If there's anything Cincinnati's pretty solid at, they have a really good defensive line because they have one of the best nose tackles in all of college football, to be quite honest. So I don't think you can run the way they did without the offensive line blocking very well, especially when the tight ends did not block very well. So I think that's one thing. Now, are they going to continue to do that? We'll see. But if we go back to the sample size that we do know, and that's when with Connor Riley is on the field the past several years, the offensive line plays a lot better seemingly when he is on the field. So you have to think maybe that does translate. And, you know, this is more kind of an X's and O's thing. If there's any defenses that are similar in this league, it's along with K-State actually, in terms of structure and scheme and format and all that, it's along with K-State, West Virginia, Cincinnati, and Iowa State. They all play the same defense, just with minor tweaks and their own, little twists on it. If you look back on those games, Kansas State runs the ball pretty well against that scheme, probably because they see it a lot more in practice.
Are we buying Trey Spivey being consistently productive the rest of the year?
Not sure about the rest of the year. I'll let Cole answer, but I will say I will buy him as an ascending player. That because typically you kind of pop off now. Now the game plan's out, right? Now the tape's out there on you, so you're on the game plan. That's some coaches say that now you're on the game plan. Now what you gonna do? So I don't know if I buy him like for example this week against Iowa State, since this will be the first team that kind of schemes for him and kind of watches his tendencies and all that. But I buy him as a very pivotal player for next season.
Well, if I'm looking at this weekend against Iowa State, top 10 pass defense in the country, probably the best pass defense in the Big 12. So I probably wouldn't buy him for this weekend necessarily. I think it'll be a struggle to throw the ball through the air when you factor in the cold weather conditions as well. So that'll be difficult. But I'm definitely buying stock in Trey Spivey for his future. He's going to be the guest on the player spotlight with Riverbank Brewing and Wildcat NIL this week as well. So be out on the lookout on the feed for that. We're recording with Trey later today. Just a tremendous young man and a really bright future. So redshirt freshman that's got a lot of years left ahead of him. I'm just glad K-State's finally utilizing him. I thought they waited too long probably in getting their best talent on the field. So really good piece. And, I think he's got a really, really bright future, and it'll be fascinating to see, like, when they get to the bowl game, when he's got extra time in the offense and everything, how he looks there. But, yeah, he's an absolute starter next year.
Yeah, and then, talk about that bowl game, he will probably be you would think, because you're going to have guys that enter the transfer portal or like we saw last year. That's probably going to happen to an extent this year. So he might end up just being starter in the bowl game too.
Oh yeah, I would expect it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I would definitely think so. And I guess the good thing, I do not feel great about the passing game at Ames for all the reasons that you guys outlined. That's what that defense does well. It's going to be cold. They better be able to run the ball, which they should be able to, but they better be able to run the ball in Ames. I guess I'll put it that way. But with the receiver core, it feels like Jace Brown is fading here toward the end of the year. Obviously, Jaden Jackson has been now kind of in and out. It's paved the way for Trey. And Keegan Johnson has been injured, like literally in and out of the lineup because of an injury. So, like, they've needed guys to step up. And, well, it was in a losing effort. I mean, Dante Cephas did step up against Arizona State. Now you've got Trey Spivey here. So, I guess I don't know if that's good or bad. I feel like Spivey has more of an upside than most of the guys that we just mentioned there because of his size and skill potential, but he is still young. We saw the young mistakes against Arizona State, for instance, on that third down, not just like sitting in a zone to wait for the ball. So the more I talk myself into it, it makes me really uneasy about the passing game, that you've got a lot of flux with the receiver core right now and what's happening. And you're about to go up against probably the best pass defense you've seen this year. I mean, just off the top of my head, I think it's going to be.
Yeah, just in general, and it's a conversation for a different day. You talk about the receiver room and a passing game being in flux. I mean, I think there's a chance that this wide receiver room gets turned upside down in the offseason. So
it's actually interesting to look through Iowa State's season, and they have 4 different games actually, where their opponents are under 100 yards passing. Now, a lot of that is because their run defense has been so bad that teams just want to line up and run the football against them, and also some opponents that aren't really traditionally good at throwing the football. Iowa threw for 99 yards. Houston threw for 72. Now, what's interesting is UCF only threw for 62 yards, but they ran for 354 yards against Iowa State. And then also Brendan Sorsby and Cincinnati went there and ran for 287 on 39 carries just a couple weeks ago. And Sorsby had 141 yards, the quarterback for Cincy, on the ground. They only threw for 66 in that game. So 4 different games, 3 where it's 75 yards or less passing through the air.
3 of those 4 teams do have trouble. 3 of those 4 teams you mentioned do have trouble completing a forward pass. So I was including you because you mentioned Iowa and another team. I was like, UCF is probably right there too.
Well, UCF started Ja'Curry Brown in that game, the freshman too, who doesn't throw the ball really yet. And so, but to that point, guys, and we'll get into this, like I said, but Ja'Curry Brown ran for 154 yards on 13 carries against him. Sorsby ran for 114 or 141 on 14 carries. And Brendan Sorsby's not like your traditional dual threat guy. Like he can meet.
Yeah, he had a nice run that I think I called back against K-State. And Cincinnati in general still ran for 6 yards to carry on K-State.
Yes, I do think that a lot of that, I mean, was kind of the Arizona State effect the week before where they, they're protecting a multi-score lead. You're going to be more willing to give up rushing yards in the second half. I think some of that you could probably ascribe to it, but fair enough. I would say, to me, the biggest storyline this week, and what is headline number 2 for me, which is going to be brought to you by our friends at Alinco. For all your home improvement needs, make sure to talk to our friends at Alinco, great K-State folks who can get you taken care of. The pressure is squarely on Iowa State in this game, which, obviously you'd rather be one of the teams competing directly, essentially, for a spot in the Big 12 championship game. But it is, in a way, nice to be like, well, K-State gets to go in and play spoiler and no pressure there. Meanwhile, Iowa State, saw the local news this week put up the poll. Is it the biggest home game in Iowa State football history? And 85% of people said yes, because on the line for Iowa State is basically a spot in the Big 12 championship game if they win. There is one very wild scenario that could unfold if they won where they would not get in, but they will be essentially guaranteed a spot in the Big 12 championship game if they win. They would also be guaranteed their first 10-win season in school history, which, as we know, with the internet rivalry between these two schools, is something that gets brought up a lot, that they don't have one of those. And then, of course, it is the rivalry. I mean, they love beating K-State. So more pressure for sure on Iowa State in this game. I do think that should at least help, right? I mean, it should help K-State be motivated to say, hey, you can go get these guys back for last year. You can prevent them from going to the Big 12 championship game. You do still have an outside shot at it. And you can just totally play spoiler here in Ames.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of harken back to 2022 as the opposite in Ames. Now, it wasn't the final game of the season, so it didn't have those same type of pressure. But Kansas State was the Big 12 title contender at that point, and Iowa State was not, right? And the Wildcats ended up winning 10-9 in what turns out to be a pretty ugly game. And I think that's when John was distraught on the floor of Cole's house. When Malik Knowles fumbled at the 1-yard line, I believe that game.
Sure was.
Yeah, so it kind of takes me back to that game a little bit with the roles reversed. What I would say is I also think the game could play out similarly because you had that one, which was a total defensive game, and then last year, which is a total offensive shootout in Manhattan. But the weather's going to be cold because there's never a good weather game when these two teams play. There's always some kind of dynamic coming into it, and now they're starting to call for a little bit of snow on Saturday. I saw this morning for the first time that is possible. So, but yeah, I think this is a 1-score game played maybe in the teens.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Does it favor K-State if it's played in the teens? Is that better for K-State if it's a low-scoring game?
Yeah, Iowa State's actually won a lot of high-scoring games this year.
Well, their strength is their explosiveness on offense, right? It's just like last year.
Yeah, so they're in the teens, then they probably weren't explosive.
Yeah. Iowa State doesn't run the ball really well. I mean, their strength is throwing the ball, especially over the middle of the field. I mean, they might have the most talented tandem or duo of wide receivers that K-State will face this year. K-State's faced some really talented squads of duos, trios of receivers, but these guys, Higgins and Noel, are terrific and have given K-State some fits in the past. Look, it is kind of refreshing to, I thought this game was going to be incredibly stressful just a few weeks ago, going into Ames and having a Big 12 championship on the line. And yes, I would much prefer that scenario. I would prefer to have the Big 12 championship on the line and K-State winning and controlling its destiny. But, if I want to look at an optimistic point of view to what John just said, it's kind of refreshing to be able to play spoiler and to still have a chance to get your ninth regular season win. You're ranked in the college football playoff poll at 24th. You win this game, Iowa State's ranked 18th in the playoff poll. You're probably going to move into right around the top 20 or so. You'll have 3 top 25 wins in the playoff poll as well. And you'll wreck Iowa State's season, take them out of the playoff, and prevent them from getting 10 regular season wins once again. So all the pressure, all the weight on the world is on their shoulders, and it's kind of fun. I mean, what's K-State? As a player, I would think this would be kind of fun to go in and have the opportunity to ruin somebody's season on their home field, especially in a revenge game based off what they did to K-State last year. I heard Brendan Ma talk about it on the post-game show, and remembering that he's an Iowa kid, so obviously probably plays an even bigger role to him. Chris Kleiman, we know, feels strongly about this game as well. Both fan bases do. But, I mean, I think K-State's going to go in and give them a heck of a fight. There's a reason Vegas has this game as a 2.5-point spread, which means on a neutral field, K-State actually might be favored by right around a half point. I mean, this is...
Yes. So a Pregame.
Yeah, I think seems appropriate. DY talked about it, similar seasons. K-State slipped up one more time, but really similar seasons in terms of how it's played out, and probably messing around with some teams that you shouldn't have been messing around with. That has definitely happened to Iowa State. I mean, they really have not been dominant at all this year. I mean, the UCF game, obviously they lost to Texas Tech. Utah, very easily could have lost that game. One field goal goes differently at the end of the game. They have not been blowing away bad opponents. Now they find a way to really keep you in the game with pick sixes, blocked punts, punt returns. They are Iowa State is very explosive, both for you and for them. That has kind of been their MO so far this year. I will say it's good news that we saw the effort that K-State gave against Cincinnati. I mean, that makes me feel good about where they're going to be the rest of the year, because I would think this would be the easier game to get up for. I know Chris Kleiman would tell me, well, senior day, and I heard him say that, the guys brought good energy for senior day. I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm sure you can use that as a motivating tactic, but this one seems like the far easier one to get fired up for, and they already conquered the Cincinnati one with good energy. So I feel good about what you're going to get effort-wise.
Yeah, I think anymore with how this game has evolved, this series has evolved over time, I think you could always count on K-State and Iowa State getting up for each other, to be quite honest.
Yeah. Unless you're Will Lee.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, did you see Mike Elko's comment on Will Lee this week?
No.
It might have been a couple weeks ago. He talked about how he liked the blanket name, but sometimes he soft as a pillow. So that's crazy. Crazy there, but that brought back some nice memories with the Iowa State game.
Boy, I did not see that. By the way, here is I heard you guys trying to talk through the Iowa State scenarios, okay? So here is your Iowa State scenario here. If they win and there's a 2-team tie for first at 7-2, only 2 of the 4 win that are there, then Iowa State will be in. If all 4 win and it's a 4-way tie, Iowa State will be in. If there's a 3-team tie, Iowa State will be in unless BYU loses, West Virginia beats Texas Tech, and then 2 other games go the correct way. So that's the scenario. It's 4 games. They would have to win, and then 4 games would have to go against them for them to not be in the Big 12 championship game. And that's all because when you get into these multi-team ties, it winds up going to the record of your opponents, be it common opponents with the other 2 or just your overall record against the rest of the Big 12 schedule that you've played. So a lot of that will depend on all these other games that are happening. But I would say, it's 95+% that Iowa State is going with a win. So that's what's on the line for them.
obviously want K-State to win, but if Iowa State were to lose, it would be funny if that one obscure scenario actually came true and they did not get in.
Like, is it you're saying if Iowa State won and then the dominoes all fall so that they still get in?
It'd be hilarious.
Yeah, that would be. It would result in a Colorado Arizona State Big 12 championship game. That's the only way it would not happen if they win. The K-State scenario, Derek did a good job outlining it the other day, but you need Baylor to lose, you need BYU to lose, and then you need one of the other two, Colorado or Arizona State, to lose. That is your scenario. And, Cole said, I heard you bring up the Max Olson tweet, they had it at 15%. Outside of that top group, it was barely, but it was the most likely outcome outside of the top group, if that gives you any solace.
Baylor's hot right now, but they're playing a team probably hotter than them in Kansas. I don't know where BYU's at. Like them losing out is completely within the realm of possibility. I doubt Colorado loses to Oklahoma State. They just, 0-9 Big 12 record kind of seems like a gimme. Arizona's the team. Maybe they can help you. We'll see.
John, I'm getting a little Black Friday Colorado Nebraska vibes with this Oklahoma State. Colorado.
Yeah, man, you brought up that 1999 Colorado-Nebraska game when they whiffed the game-winning field goal that was easy and would have put K-State in the Big 12 championship game. Who did Nebraska play in the 1999 Big 12 championship game?
Shoot, was it?
I'm looking it up.
Them in Texas.
It was 9-3. K-State beat by 18 in Austin that year. So you probably are winning the Big 12 championship game there in 1999. Yeah.
Are you guys actually giving Oklahoma State a chance? I'm not.
No, not really.
Only thing, DY, this is the only thing I would say. One, Ollie Gordon he's been, a little bit better. And we just saw Devin Neal, have a hero game where he has 41 touches. Like if it can be an Ollie Gordon game where he gets 41 touches. But the other thing is they started that true freshman quarterback, and Tech's defense sucks. I get it. But they scored, 48 points on Texas Tech? I mean, they moved it up and down and seemed to have more of a spark. So this is not going to be limp Alan Bowman out there. If limp noodle arm Alan Bowman throwing the ball, like they seem to have a little bit more juice there. So if there's a little something there, but yeah, I very much doubt it.
Yeah, their defense is so bad that you do, and they have another player, dive at the knees at Shedeur Sanders, like KU did, and he gets dinged up. Then otherwise, no, I don't foresee a scenario.
Cole, maybe I don't, maybe Hunter Dickinson can roll out there and kick Shedeur in the head on Saturday.
Those helmets these days, they'll protect them, but yeah. Yeah, so I don't really give Colorado. So BYU has to lose, John. Like they have to lose. Okay, so it's not like two of the three between Arizona State, BYU, and Colorado. BYU absolutely has to lose.
It would appear, yes, because the Redditor that broke down every single scenario, both of the K-State scenarios include a BYU loss in it. Yeah, and a Baylor loss. Yeah.
Well, look, Houston's well coached. Willie Fritz, a good football coach. So maybe BYU, if they're up a couple scores, will try to throw the ball inside their own 10-yard line, and maybe they'll pick it up. So, and that'll flip.
I mean, look, the BYU Houston thing could very much happen.
Yeah.
Obviously, like Baylor losing, I would predict it. Houston losing or Houston winning is in the realm of possibility.
That's like if you were looking at the games, not knowing the Big 12 ramifications, you would say, "Oh, Houston could maybe give BYU a game." Like that's.
I mean, to your point earlier, DY, like Arizona State's a rivalry. It's in Tucson.
The underdog does typically do well in that game. I saw a tweet about that.
Relatively, it's an 8.5-point spread, so it's in the realm of possibilities when you look at it, and you never know with rivalry games. So, I mean, that is a possible scenario. John, can you help me understand? DY and I were talking about it, and DY said he thought of a strength schedule. I ran the numbers. I still don't understand how Baylor has a tiebreaker over K-State if they're both 6-3, because K-State played Arizona State. They didn't. K-State beat Colorado and Iowa State in that scenario. They didn't. The upper echelon teams in the league. Like, I really struggle with the Baylor thing. Is there like an explanation for that?
I mean, the only thing I can tell you is that the tiebreakers wind up becoming, when you get past the first couple, it's record of common opponents and record of your entire Big 12 schedule if the common opponents thing doesn't clear it up. So it's either they have a better combined record in Big 12 play with their common opponents, or their entire Big 12 schedule is better. I kind of start to guess that it becomes something with common opponents in that scenario, because you are talking about the totality of K-State's schedule being better, but perhaps and what I mean is like K-State's record versus the common opponents versus Baylor's record versus the common opponents.
I got it. So Baylor played Colorado and Iowa State in that scenario, lost to both of them. They played Houston. Baylor beat Houston. K-State didn't. I'd have to pull up their schedule and look at it. I was just curious, and maybe I'll get to it before the end of the show and run the numbers there. But it just felt like at a high level, the K-State should be ahead of them based off a lot of the things I saw. But
yeah, because Baylor didn't play BYU, did they?
Baylor did play BYU. Yeah, they lost.
The only team that K-State played and lost to that Baylor beat was Houston then.
Yeah, I think that's right. And K-State would have, yeah.
So that doesn't make sense. Yeah.
The Big 12 will probably announce if they screwed up that whole thing, and we'll be rooting for the wrong team on Saturday.
Okay, well, first of all, this scenario, including Baylor, is not coming from the Big 12. The Big 12 did not give all 200. Dennis Dodd tweeted out that there were like 256 scenarios or something. Like they didn't give you everything. This was a Redditor that I think was using I would presume was using the generator that's online and had all these scenarios outlined. So that could be, I mean, it could possibly be off. I'm just doing the best that I can here without having to spend hours of research. I mean, I got a communications degree from a state school, guys. Like, I can't give you calculus here, but that could be off, Cole. But if you're going through that exercise and it's not the common opponents thing, I would tell you that it's something about it's the combined record of your Big 12 opponents is the next tiebreaker. So
you can tell Cole's doing research now as we go to free.
Steve,
I'm writing down the records of the teams they played. Just I'll get to it later on.
Okay. But also, Cole, in the Big 12's defense, they did send out a release that outlined like the big picture, what really matters. And they were basically like, look, they just said of the teams that have 3 Big 12 losses, for them to get in, they need to win and get at least 3 of the other 4 to lose that are above them. They didn't outline the specific scenarios. They gave you generalities. That's a huge step in the right direction from last year. So they're getting better. They're getting better. By the way, our friends at Alinco, locally owned out of Kansas City, owned by K-Staters, they are in an industry where many have been bought out by national companies. They're still local and have been since 1986. All right, that's before Bill Snyder showed up, people. So if you need new windows or a bathroom remodel, they've got premium window replacements, Kohler Luxstone shower systems, new siding on your home. They got you covered. Don't need to be in KC or Manhattan. They're in Western Missouri, Northeast Kansas, and the entire KC Metro. Go to alencohome.com. That's ALENCO home.com to check out their services, including free estimates. You can call Sam at 913-961-2165. Derek, I'm not happy with because I know that he is wearing home field apparel today, but it's Boise State. And Boise State, look, is very annoying right now because they are, unless they lose, going to keep a Big 12 team out of getting a bye in the playoff, which is ridiculous. If you go look at their best wins are Washington State, who's now lost 2 straight, including to New Mexico, and UNLV. It's a very frustrating situation that it's not even close right now. Like, they are so much further ahead than the Big 12 champs. I hate it. I would also say, I guess in Derek's defense, Boise is not the real enemy here. The enemy is that the SEC and the Big Ten have everybody else fighting for table scraps, and we're all at each other's throats when they're the real problem here. But Derek is wearing a beautiful home field Statue of Liberty shirt for Boise State. It was a simpler time in 2007 when we could all just love up the Boise Statue of Liberty play. But that's the point on home field apparel. They picked the perfect thing to encapsulate Boise and made it into a t-shirt. And they've got, guess what, 50 plus K-State designs there that you can pick from at homefieldapparel.com. We will even give you 15% off your first order using promo code 3MA24. Although, what's the Black Friday code? What do I need for that?
Don't hold me to it. I'm going to try and remember. BHCM24. Oh.
Okay. BFMC24. That is the Black Friday code, which I believe gets you 30% off. Is that correct? 30% off?
Yeah, the preparation is pristine here.
Oh, no. It might be BFCM24. Nick is not sure. We are looking it up. 2 shows in a row. We are looking it up on the fly here. I will tell you, if you just go follow my Twitter timeline, I did tweet about it the other day for Home Field Apparel. So, okay, it is BFCM24. BFCM24. That'll get you a better discount for Black Friday right now. So listen to this one, BFCM24, to get, I believe, 30% off your order at Home Field Apparel.
Okay. 30%, and it runs through December 3rd. So you got some time to get some Christmas gifts for family and friends.
Yes, honestly, that is legit, man. K-State pullover is pretty awesome. I see Jerome Tang wearing it quite a bit, and it looks great, man. Looks sharp. So get that at homefieldapparel.com, and we're back in just a moment.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your #1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
Guys, real quick, the final headline I had was just Campbell v. Kleiman, right? Like, why has Matt Campbell gotten the better of Chris Kleiman? I'll be interested to hear Cole's response here because I know that he will just strike 2020 from the record. But if you don't, Matt Campbell leads the series 3-2, and 2 of the wins are 2 of the most embarrassing losses of the Kleiman era in 2020 and then 2022. Or 2023, rather, last year in the snow. Yes. So you have the snow game, and then you have was it 45-0 in Ames in 2020? Something like that. Why is it? What do you ascribe that to, DY? Why Matt Campbell has gotten the better of Chris Kleiman more often than not?
Well, it's 3-2 is not really that, because I'm just going to quibble. You're right. 3-2 is not really that decisive. And if it's but you take out COVID, it's 2-2. Now,
but the Big 12 championship team won 10-9 in Ames against a 4-win Iowa State.
A win's a win. Just like football is football. A win is a win. So we're going. But I will say, if you don't take COVID out, then I think you've lost 3 of the last 4. So that's probably that kind of recency is probably why it stings so much, and that the 2 of the 3 losses in that are pretty excruciating. 145-0 in 2020 during the COVID year, and then last year in the snow game where your defense is non-existent and looks like they haven't tackled anyone in their entire life. I get it. Couldn't really explain it away, but I do think these teams are very similar, and that's why it's actually a pretty even in terms of wins and losses over time.
I mean, the history of the games is kind of strange. I mean, it seems like we always have some weird weather circumstances as well.
And they're never play in clean conditions.
Yeah, I mean, 2019, you guys remember, was just that brutally cold wind in Manhattan and about 20,000, 25,000 people there. Youngblood takes the opening kick for a touchdown. K-State wins it 27-17. 2020, obviously, being the COVID year. 2021 was the nice weather year. We had a nice game when it comes to weather, and Breece Hall took the opening play for a 75-yard touchdown and took the wind out of K-State sails from there. That was the most dominant outside of the COVID year, where K-State was dominated in this series with Chris Kleiman and Matt Campbell as the head coach. Very frustrating game in 2021. 2022, K-State squeaks out the 1-point win.
Cool.
In the snow. So, it's... So, look, I don't really count the COVID season. What I would also say, as you guys know, as I would also say, so they played basically then in front of, in Manhattan, they've had they played at home in 2019, 2021, 2023. It is frustrating that you dropped 2 games in Manhattan when it comes to that. But because of the COVID season throwing everything kind of out of whack, I mean, really, to me, it's more of a 2-2. We know Iowa State wasn't really sitting players during the pandemic season. Not saying they weren't following protocols, but I am. And, they had everybody basically for that game in K-State in Ames that year. And K-State had like 35 guys not make the trip. So, I mean, they had walk-on starting out there. So it was a disaster. So, I don't know. Like, to me, it feels kind of even. But
to add on to the weather, in 2018, of course, it's Bill Snyder's last game, but that was when we all had to drive back in a blizzard as well. So,
well, you did. We beat it by an hour.
Well, lucky you.
I don't know, Cole. I guess I feel like you guys sort of made my point, though. It's like when K-State...
Yeah, you're looking at how, which that makes it look dominant, but if you just look at wins and losses, it's even, and that's really what matters.
But I think the how matters, man. I mean, 21. I had forgotten about 21.
If K-State goes and wins by 1 point Saturday, how does it matter? If they win 7-6, then it's 3-3.
I mean, that's great, but you don't want to be taking some of the most embarrassing losses and frustrating losses of the climate era. That
already happened. Then the most recent thing would be a 7-6 win, and you ruin their season. Pretty cool, huh?
Okay, well, yes, but you're moving the goalpost on me there. I'm not saying they need style points this week. I'm just saying in the series, you've had a lot of rough goes against them because, the 21 game was from the jump pretty bad, and that was a team that finished 7-6. Like that, they had a lot of talent. Iowa State did that year, but they didn't put it together at all.
They didn't have a good team in 21, really. So
they also won 7 games in the regular season, so it was pretty evenly matched, and it was in Manhattan. So I don't know. It definitely bothers me seemingly more than it does you guys. But if they go win on Saturday, that's fine. I'll start to put it away.
Oh, it bothers me. I mean, like 2021 bothered me a lot because K-State didn't look ready from the start and just kind of got owned. I mean, K-State cut it to 10-7 in that game, and then from there on, Iowa State pretty much dominated that one. That one's the one that bothers me the most. It was in Manhattan. It was a Jazz crowd, and
yep, that was the most underachieving Iowa State team ever, though.
Yeah, I mean, NFL talent on that.
It's everywhere. Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah. Okay, well, how much NFL talent is on this one, Cole?
Well, that's a good question. Have not gone to the NFL radars for them. Do you want
two receivers?
Yeah, Noel and Higgins very well could play on Sundays.
Is it Jalen Noel, right?
It's Noel, yeah.
Noel. I'm going to call him Noel because I'm in the Christmas spirit. So, no, we'll call him Jalen Noel out of respect. He's a Kansas City kid. They also have some talented pieces in the secondary. I mean, Jeremiah Cooper, Miles Purchase, Malik Burden. I could go down the list. So they have some NFL talent. So is this you asking me to start the preview, John?
It was.
You want me to go offense first?
Whatever you prefer, my friend.
All right. Iowa State's offense, ranked number 25 in the FEI, Brian Fremo's FEI rankings. Kelly Ford has their offense ranked number 20 or 38 in the country, averaging 2.65 points per drive, 32nd nationally, 5th in the Big 12, 7th in the Big 12 in yards per play, and 35th nationally. Success rate overall, 93rd in the country, and 14th in the Big 12. The big thing to me, guys, is going to boil down to explosiveness. I talked about it earlier. Iowa State last year was number 1 nationally in explosives on offense. We witnessed it in Manhattan firsthand. Iowa State ran 32 plays to K-State's 102 last year, yet Iowa State scored 42 points, averaged 15 yards per play when you take away kneel downs on those 32 plays. It was the most explosive performance against a K-State defense, I believe, in any game I had charted over 20 plus years at that time. Well, this year, Iowa State ranks number 9 in the country in explosive plays and number 2 in the Big 12. Last year, they were 5th in rushing explosiveness, number 12 in passing explosiveness. This year, they're number 9 overall when it comes to explosives. K-State's defense, guys, is 129th overall out of 134 FBS teams in explosives allowed and 15th in the Big 12. K-State's number 128 in the country in passing explosives defensively and 15th in the league there. So that's where I become concerned about this. Now, in the cold weather conditions, Iowa State's probably used to playing with it, but, can that minimize some of their passing attack? They're really good when it comes to explosive plays, big plays, and it happened in Manhattan last year, and K-State's been really poor at containing the big play. Iowa State has 60 plays of 20 yards or more. That's 23rd nationally. Now, they struggle to run the football. So line yards, 2.89, that's number 96 nationally, number 11 in the league. They run the ball on 51% of their plays, but their rushing success rate is 107th nationally and 13th in the Big 12. K-State's defense is number 2 in the country in rushing success rate And they've been really good against the run. We know that. Yards per carry, they've done a nice job containing the run. Iowa State rushing explosiveness, 36 in the country. Last 4 games, at 135 carries for 486 yards, 3.6 yards per carry. Carson Hansen leads the team with rushing yards of 503. Abu Sama, only 466 this season after what we witnessed in Manhattan last year. On a passing game, Rocco Beck, he's got completing 61% of his passes, 18 TDs to 8 interceptions, nearly 2,900 yards through the air, 8.2 yards per pass. He's thrown at least 1 interception in 4 of his last 5 games, also been sacked 11 times in the past 6 games. He's thrown for 260 yards or more in 6 of their last 7 games. I already mentioned the passing explosive numbers. They're 25th in the country. They're number 3 in the Big 12. Jaden Higgins, 6'4" wide receiver, 77 receptions for over 1,000 yards this season. Jalen Knoll, 976 yards on 61 receptions, averaging 16 per catch. Higgins, 4th season of college football, spent his first 2 at Eastern Kentucky, only over 3,000 yards receiving in his career. Knoll, 225 career receptions, over 2,600 yards in his 4 years in Ames. He had 3 catches for 160 yards last season in Manhattan. Higgins tied for number 2 nationally with 51 catches of 10 or more yards. Knoll and Higgins are both tied for 20th nationally with 15 catches of 20 yards each or more. And Knoll leads the country with 8 receptions of 40-plus yards and tied for number 6 nationally with 4 of 50-plus yards. So big play wide receivers in Higgins, Knoll, and how K-State can contain them will be crucial, because I think K-State will be able to bottle up their rushing attack guys and make them a pass-heavy team.
Well, it's a good thing that we feel great about the K-State secondary and have never wavered the entire year. And it's a very good thing that there's no recent history of Iowa State running it all over K-State's defense. So,
well, I mean, keep in mind Iowa State was 5th in explosiveness last year on the ground, and this year they're 107th. So they have not been nearly as successful when it comes to rushing game explosives, but passing, to your point, I mean, K-State has had plenty of issues there when it comes to that. So we'll see how they look on Saturday. It will not help if Colby McAllister is out at safety for K-State. He got hurt against Cincinnati on Saturday, and if that happens, that means Jordan Riley plays more, and that could be problematic. UI there?
No, I don't have anything at this time. It didn't look good, but I don't know. What I would say is, you said being used to playing in the cold. Neither team has played a game under 50 degrees this year.
Where do you find the weather tracker for that? At that website?
Go to the ESPN box scores. It will tell you the weather.
There might have been a 48 or 49 in there somewhere, but I'm just saying Iowa State and Kansas State have had good weather all year.
One thing I would point out, I don't know.
It's going to be 10.
I can't recall off the top of my head how many more of these I've seen this year from Iowa State, but they did pull off a ballsy trick play to beat Utah late in that game. And we know that K-State's been susceptible to that throughout the entire climate era. So that's
better this year, though. That's one thing they did.
You're right. They have been a little better this year, but that's a nugget that I would throw out. Watch out for them doing something tricky. They promoted in-house with their offensive coordinator, and that dude seems like he is awesome.
But potentially, although to be honest, as good as their numbers are, they probably haven't been as productive as they should be. So I would have a little bit of questions on it. But first year, you can't hate the results by any means. But I do think a lot of it, and maybe I'm misplacing the credit, but I think a lot of the credit actually goes to Rocco Beck. I think he's that good.
Okay.
Well, their fans were hating on their offensive coordinator earlier.
They should be more productive than they are. They have too many laws concerning the productivity of their quarterback and receivers. Can't run the ball. That's the problem.
They had 22 on Texas Tech at home. Tech, we know, is terribly.
Okay, fair enough.
Cincinnati, they had 20 points with 4 minutes left in that game at home.
2 touchdowns in the last 4 minutes. Yep.
So Utah's a tough defense, so I'm not going to give them any flack there for scoring 31 in that game.
Houston's they hunkered down against K-State, a fairly good defense, but Iowa State had 3 points through 3 quarters.
Yeah. Yep. So, and they have used to be falling behind early in games. If you guys notice, I think UCF got up on them 14-0, or I can't remember if they got up 14-0 or not, but I know that Baylor got up on them 14-0 as well. Texas Tech went down, scored first drive, jumped ahead of them.
Utah was up like 10-3. I think they got a pick 6 early in that game. Yeah.
So they're slow. So, all right. Iowa State's defense, 30th ranked in the FEI. Kelly Ford's model ranks their defense 25th nationally. Points per drive allowed 1.64. That's 18th in the country and number 1 in the Big 12. Overall success rate, 70th nationally. Overall explosives allowed defensively, 57th nationally. Teams run the ball in Iowa State on nearly 55% of their offensive plays. It's the highest mark in the Big 12, ranks 25th nationally in rush and opponent rushing percentage. Part of that is because their pass defense is so good. Other part of it is because their run defense has really struggled. Rushing success rate allowed, they're 90th in the country and 11th in the Big 12. Not including sacks, Iowa State's allowing 5.6 yards per carry. That ranks 114th in the country. According to PFF, they have the 120th ranked run-graded defense out of 134 FBS teams. Rushing explosives allowed, they're 114th in the country and 15th in the Big 12. You recall last year, they were 19th nationally in rushing explosive defense and best in the Big 12. So they're taking a big step back there. K-State is 23rd offensively in rushing explosives and number 3 in the league. They're number 19 in rushing success rate and number 4 in the league there. K-State's averaging 6.3 yards per carry when you discount sacks. That ranks 6th nationally according to PFF. DJ Giddens, number 8 nationally with 817 yards after contact this season. Avery Johnson, number 3 among Power 4 quarterbacks with 25 rushes of 10 yards or more. It's an Iowa State defense that has suffered some injuries. They lost linebacker Caleb Bacon, their best run defender in the first game of the season, to injury. Doubt he plays on Saturday against K-State. He finished second on the team last year with 60 tackles and 6.5 tackles for loss. I mentioned it earlier, guys. Let's go through some of the game logs real quick on Iowa State when it comes to defending the run. UCF ran for 354 yards on 39 carries. Cincinnati ran for 287 on 39 carries. KU ran for 237 on 46 rushes against Iowa State. Iowa ran for 204, 5.4 yards per rush against them. Houston ran for 169 yards and 5.5 yards per carry against them. They cannot stop dual threat quarterbacks. Brennan Sorsby ran for 141 on 14. Jalen Daniels, 68 yards on 12 carries. Ja'Curry Brown, a freshman quarterback at UCF, ran for 154 on 13 rushes. Garrett Green of West Virginia had 10 carries for 87 yards. Donovan Smith and Sion Chris of Houston combined for 76 yards on 14 carries. Utah's Luke Bateri, John, who I think was their 4th or 5th string quarterback, came in the game. I wasn't able to watch it because I was at the K-State. He came,
I think 4th.
He's a senior. He came in and had 4 carries for 47 yards last week against Iowa State's defense. Sawyer Robertson had 3 for 24 in the Baylor matchup. So when I added all those up, guys, all those quarterbacks, and that's 7 Big 12 games, those quarterbacks ran for a combined 597 yards on 70 rushes, an average of 8.5 yards per carry. So that's been a big problem for them. Can Avery Johnson, can K-State continue to cut him loose and run him? That's going to be critical because I get nervous about this K-State offense against this passing defense. Quick numbers on their passing D. Iowa State allowing a 52.5% completion percentage at FBS opponents this year. That's number 3 in the country. And the number 10 coverage grade in the country per PFF. They're allowing 5.9 yards per pass. That's 8th in the country and number 1 in the Big 12. They're number 3 in the country in pass efficiency defense and passing success rate allowed, number 37, etc. 154 passing yards per game, ranks 5th in the country. However, they don't get after the quarterback. 120th in the country in sack percentage defensively at 4%. 5.3 tackles for loss per game, 77th in the nationally. Forced 19 turnovers, which is 25th most in the country. They do expect J.R. Singleton to potentially play in this game. He's a defensive tackle who leads them with 4 sacks. He's been banged up, missed several games. Matt Campbell said he returned to practice this week. So his addition would be big for Iowa State. They might get a couple other guys back. Jeremiah Cooper, I already mentioned. I always mispronounce his name. Bo Frailer, the senior safety, second team.
Freeler or Freiler? I don't know.
He didn't choose K-State when they recruited him, so I don't give a damn about him. Miles Purchase had the 4th most pass breakups in college football last season with 15, at a career high against K-State with 5. He has 6 pass breakups this season. They have some really good pieces in that secondary.
They do.
Well, the start is going to be important, and it's probably a good thing that Iowa State has started slow, because if you start slow against Iowa State and you have to abandon your running game and just throw to kind of play from behind, you're feeding right into what Iowa State wants.
Yeah, that's not going to go well. I wouldn't feel good about that at all. Speaking of the Iowa State passing game, though, my first quick hitter for you is that Cole mentioned that Jalen Knoll had 160 yards on 3 catches in last year's Farmageddon matchup. Will K-State as a team go over or under 160 passing yards on Saturday? Will they beat Jalen Knoll's receiving yard total from last year's individual game as a team this year?
I'll say no, because even maybe I get this wrong. I'm going to check. Because even last week, when they drubbed Cincinnati, Avery threw for 147.
That's right. Yeah, they were under the 160 mark last week. If everything goes to plan, I think that number is going to be under. I think K-State's going to want to try and run the football, control the clock in this one, so I'm going to take the under.
You're right. It's funny. Under is probably a win, but if it's over, it's probably a loss because it means you probably played from behind way too much.
On catch up if it's higher than that. Unless K-State hits them with just like a 70-yard explosive like Malik Knowles, but hopefully this time we hang on to the football going into the end zone.
Well, I can make a joke. Just better hope it's not Jace Brown because he's not hanging on to anything lately.
Oh, boy. Iowa State's allowing 162 yards per game, by the way, so it's pretty much like right on their season average of what they're giving up through the air. I'm with you guys. I would think that the overwhelming likelihood is that is under. I've seen some bowl projections that have K-State, Texas A&M. I've seen some that have matched up Kansas and Oklahoma. Nebraska is going to be bowl eligible they are bowl eligible for the first time since 2016. Congratulations to them for breaking that Power 5 worst streak. So who would you rather play in a bowl game this year? Nebraska, Oklahoma, Missouri, or Texas A&M?
Well, I just played Missouri twice recently. Not since I've covered the team, but he had a few bowl games against A&M as well, I believe. So just selfishly, and we played them almost every year for a while, right? So selfishly, I'll say Nebraska just because of the lack of games with them lately.
Yeah, I would choose Nebraska number 1 just to get a chance to play them again, and then I would choose Missouri actually as number 2 because I'd love revenge and to shut Eli Drinkowitz up.
I think you get some fun Avery Johnson versus Dylan Raiola storylines out of it too. It probably puts more of a spotlight on the game.
Yeah, Cole, I'm surprised. I was waiting for the Cole Brent Venables angle. Still like some Brent.
Colin Klein, yeah.
I mean, I would love to beat Oklahoma again, and what would that be, fourth in 5 years or whatever? I mean, 4 and 6 years. It would be fun to add another tally to that. I would list that as third. Honestly, A&M is far down the list for me. Like that would be, I'd rather just not even be around them. So I would probably have that as the last one.
Yeah, I don't care as much about that. It would be really fun to shut Eli Drinkowitz up for sure. But probably Nebraska, the novelty of it, I do miss playing them, and that's a game obviously I think you could win.
Is there even a bowl game where that would come into play?
I don't have like any of these as like realistic things that could happen. Because all those teams are kind of in that same.
The other 3 are possible because the Big 12 does have like 2 or 3 tie-ins with the SEC, but I just don't know if they have one with the Big 10.
I would say though, guys, with the new playoff, like one way to add a little bit of juice to the bowl games is to just get rid of conference affiliation tie-in.
Yeah.
Let them pick like rivalry. I saw somebody else point that out the other day. I don't remember where it was. Just let them pick rivalry games. Like let the holiday poll just say, hey, we want Nebraska K-State. Who cares about the bowl tie-in?
I agree. I agree, especially since the holiday bowl tie-in is still the Pac-12 teams. Like it's going to be kind of a mess trying to find to really slot those bowls, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that would be a great thing, but I would imagine that there's still going to be too many bowls that would be like, oh, well, we don't want to give up our SEC tie, or whatever it might be.
Contracts will get in the way of that.
Yeah, exactly. Boise State. Would Boise State have over or under 6.5 Big 12 wins over the course of a 9-game Big 12 schedule? We'll just put it in the hopper. They get a random 9-game Big 12 schedule. Would Boise have over or under 6.5 wins?
6.5 is probably you really did put that well because obviously the teams that have the chance to win the Big 12 are 7-2 and 6-3. I would probably go under to just be Ashton Genty or bust. That makes you pretty one-dimensional And I think there's enough good Big 12 coaches that'll make you pay for that.
Yeah, I'd say under. Look, I mean, just look at last year with Boise State. They went 8-6 overall. I guess they went 10-4 in 2022, but they don't feel like 7-5 in 2021. I mean, they until this year they've been floundering a little bit the last few years. I'd take the under on.
And like they're not going and playing in places like BYU, Kansas State at 8:00 in front of a boiling hot crowd either. Like
West is, or what is it? Yeah, it's Mountain West still, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like terrible this year. Like the teams, other than UNLV, I mean, it's not good.
Here, I'll read you their schedule. The answer is under, by the way. I will read you their schedule. Georgia Southern, they won that game by 11, by the way, gave up 45 points. At Oregon, Portland State, Washington State, Utah State, Hawaii, UNLV, San Diego State, Nevada, San Jose State, Wyoming, Oregon State. That's their schedule this year.
They didn't even play Colorado State, who's the third best team in the Mountain West.
Yep. Mike Gundy says he won't retire.
It's old Brady.
Old lady won't let him, in his words. Kyle Whittingham says he'll evaluate and make the best decision for the program, not necessarily himself, which noble if he's going to stick to that. Who wins more games over the next 5 years, Oklahoma State or Utah? You guys know I like these little 5-year outlooks.
Yeah.
I'll say Oklahoma State. But that's a really hard one. I mean, because I don't know, if you look at the history of Utah, Kyle Whittingham is that program. And you look at Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy's been...
I mean, they did have Urban Meyer coach there for a hot minute.
Oh, well, yeah, okay, you're right. Yeah.
I will say this, and maybe this is not... Utah probably at this point, because of their commitment to NIL compared to Oklahoma State, has far more resources.
Well, that is true. I mean, we've seen the videos of them giving everyone trucks and vehicles too, right?
And Oklahoma State reportedly, several times in the last 2 years, is having a hell of a time with NIL, right?
But I mean, they did get
this Gene.
Well, we keep Ollie Gordon, so that
and that's changing. So I guess I shouldn't be my number one thing, because revenue sharing is going to make that a little more even across the board if they choose to use the $20 million to its full capacity, right? So I still go Utah because they seem to have a succession plan. And Mike Gundy, I know he was just in the Big 12 title game, but I don't know what he's been doing at quarterback for the last 3 years.
Well, yes, they have a succession plan, but when do those things really work? I was going to say that's one of those things I don't know that I feel great about Morgan Scout.
And I'm going to argue against myself here too, because you're right on that. And if you're Utah, you have to compete against BYU, who's 15 minutes away from you, that probably has more resources as well. I'll probably go. Great question, because I'm torn. Yeah,
I don't have a good strong read.
I wouldn't feel great if I was either one. I will say that.
No, I don't feel very good about either. I mean, I guess Utah seems a little more organized right now, and if they go find a good quarterback in the portal, maybe they can hop right back on this thing. So I'll slight edge Utah on that one.
Me too, probably. They just seem to have the least resistance to the new era.
Finally here, we saw a couple of different stories about the North Carolina opening with Mac Brown being out. Football Scoop and On3 both listed immediately Matt Campbell as one of the top candidates at North Carolina. So, who works harder, Bill Snyder in his prime or Matt Campbell's agent?
Is that so this would be a twist, since Matt Campbell supposedly doesn't have an agent? Is that right, John?
Well, yes, that is what Iowa State fans will tell you, that Matt Campbell doesn't have an agent. But I tell you what, with every single job opening that his name comes up for, he must not be spending a whole lot of time coaching, or he's got an intern, or he's got, somebody, a secretary out there who's got Bruce Feldman and Ari Wasserman, whoever, Andy Staples on speed dial, because he sure gets his name out there for every single opening that comes out. So,
doesn't it make it worse if you're an Iowa State fan and he doesn't have an agent? Because that means he's leaking it to everybody.
At least this year, it seems well more appropriate since he's kind of revived himself. I will say this. I know this is not answering the question. If he truly has higher aspirations or wants to get out of Ames, this is the time to do it.
Bill Snyder, classically one time went to a hypnotist to try and see if he could condense 5 hours of sleep into 1 hour. Could you see Matt Campbell's agent doing that right now? It's like, oh shit, dude, North Carolina came open. We still have 2 weeks left of the season here. Like, damn it. All right. I need to go to the hypnotist. Can I cram 5 hours of sleep into 1 hour? Picture Matt Campbell's agent doing that right now.
Yeah. Oh, the answer is Bill Snyder, because nobody worked harder than him. But Matt Campbell's a close second, and he works real hard to get his name out there for every opening. It is just funny whenever an opening comes up that within like an hour, Matt Campbell's name is circulating. And this one doesn't even really make that much sense to me. North Carolina, like, I don't know, what's the tie?
It's a weird fit, but it's a pretty good job. Like, I think that's a good job. Word on the street, it sounded like PJ Fleck may be a real thing there. Some people also really like Dan Mullen. I don't know. Dan Mullen.
Dan Mullen.
Yeah.
If he was having a better year, Jamie Chadwell.
Well, and then I guess the other one is
Arthur Smith.
Summerall at Troy. But the thing, someone told me yesterday that Summerall, like North Carolina, would really want him, but that he's a Kentucky grad, and so he's waiting to see what's going to happen.
In the agent community, I've been told that Summerall is waiting for like Kentucky or Auburn to open. Those are the two jobs like he's been eyeing for a while. Yeah, he doesn't want to leave Tulane for anything other than the SEC probably. But they're not that I would consider it likely. But he's an offensive coordinator now. I think with the Pittsburgh Steelers, former head coach of Atlanta Falcons. I think if I have that right, Arthur Smith. He's actually an alum of the school, North Carolina.
I don't know. If I were them, I'd be a little leery of that, but who knows? Okay, lead pipe block of the week. DY, I do think has now won this. I am charging hard because I won again to get to 5-6. Thank you, Texas Tech.
What am I, 7-3-1?
No, you are 6-4-1 with your Ohio State hit over Indiana. You are 6-4-1. Cole did get one correct. It was a good pick. Minnesota, Penn State. So Cole is now 4-7. My pick this week, I already told you guys in the group text that I was calling this. How in the world you're giving any team 26 points in the Egg Bowl? That is crazy. I will take Mississippi State and the 26 points at Ole Miss. Ole Miss, who has now basically played themselves out of the playoff, crushing, disappointing loss last week. Now they've got to play this rivalry game, which is always wacky. There have only been 2 games in the last 12 years, the last 12 of that series, where one team would have covered a 26 number here. So I will take the points all day in the Egg Bowl.
I'm going the shirt I'm wearing. I'm going Boise State. They're playing Oregon State, who's just not a good program, and I think they really did put all their eggs into the basket to try to beat Washington State not long ago. And Boise State kind of sees that light at the end of the tunnel. I'll take Boise State minus 19. I think they can win by 3 touchdowns. I think if Boise State's going to lose or flirt with danger, I think it's going to be in the Mountain West Championship game and not this week against Oregon State.
I'll bet K-State plus 2.5.
Oh, there we go. You got nothing to lose. He's 4-7.
Okay. You're feeling that confident, huh?
Yes. Well, got K-State.
Plus 2.5. I was going to say they could still lose.
No. Money line.
All right.
In fact, I don't want the 2.5. Take it away. Give me just the money.
Okay. All right. Is there a bridge speech coming with this before you give us the official prediction? What will the score be?
Candidly, John, I don't have any sort of monologue or speech prepared. I have to feel it, I don't want to force it. And I felt right in 2022, but it just doesn't quite feel right this year. So, I don't have any sort of speech prepared, but I think K-State's going to go into Ames. I think they're going to play spoiler. I've got K-State winning this game 24-20 and wrecking Iowa State's hopes and dreams.
Derek.
I think it's a low-scoring game. Like I said, probably played in the teens just because of it being cold, and it's kind of what these teams do, or maybe they do split the difference of 22 and 23. We'll see. But I think You'll see a slow, low-scoring affair, and I think Iowa State wins it because of an explosive, because they are far more equipped to do that, and K-State is far more equipped to give it up. So Iowa State 17, K-State 16.
Interesting that Derek and I are just like on total opposite sides of the how many points will be scored in this game, because I think high scoring. I have nightmares of Iowa State's passing attack.
If it's high scoring, I think we're getting blown out.
Yeah, I'm going 30-24 Iowa State. I don't love that matchup of those receivers against the K-State secondary. So would love for K-State to win. I think it will be competitive. I don't think it's going to be a dud of an effort, but I would take Iowa State to win 30-24.
I think K-State can pressure the quarterback in this one, and I think the cold will affect the passing game and its explosiveness just a bit to not be terrified of those receivers in this game.
Cole, you going to call us haters or anything here at the end of the...
Oh, no, it's a tough call. It's a fair prediction. I mean, the metrics are all over the place with this. The SP Plus at ESPN has K-State winning by 0.6 points with a score of 26-25 and a win probability of 51%. But Brian Fremo's FEI projections have Iowa State with just over a 60% win probability and project Iowa State by 3.9 points with a score of 27-23. Kelly Ford has K-State ranked 22nd in his power ratings and Iowa State 21st, gives Iowa State a 57% chance to win. So 2 of the 3 metrics like Iowa State. The other one likes K-State by just under 1 point. So, I mean, I think it's going to be a one-score game. It's just going to be who makes less mistakes. When K-State loses the turnover battle, like a lot of teams, they lose frequently throughout the Chris Kleiman era. They take care of football.
They've lost every game this year where they were negative turnover margin except UT Martin, I believe.
Yeah, so you got to take care of the ball. Can't make mistakes. And if you look back through the course of the Kleiman era, DY, I mean, it's probably, I think, like 90% of the time they lose the turnover battle, they lose the game. So
this is a team definitely road tested, though, because Iowa State, like they said, they're basically calling this the most important game in school history. So that crowd will be pumping and on fire. K-State's, I'm not going to say Tulane, even though you did beat a top 20 team on the road, but talk about night road atmospheres that they've already played in with BYU, Colorado, and West Virginia. So this is not going to be something that shocks the system or is something that overwhelms them, where it may another team, just because of the television networks and the conference, they put Kansas State in this exact situation already 3 times before this year.
Yeah, K-State's prepared for this, and don't forget the cold muzzles the noise. People will be wearing gloves. The clapping doesn't sound as good with the gloves on. Guys, as much acoustically, I believe there's a study when it's colder, the air, the noise volume doesn't travel quite as well through the cold air. I'm making that up.
Where else are you getting analysis like this, folks? I don't know where else you could turn for this.
But the Iowa State people have gloves on. And Curry said he's going to be at the game, and he said he's expecting to. Oh, Nick says I'm right. I just made it up on the fly. Curry is going to be at the game. He thinks he's sitting in a suite. And John DY, I told Curry, I was like, Curry, they don't have suites. I mean, they have a press box that's built for ants. They don't really have any. I mean, they put a few suites in the outdoor. I was like, Curry, you're probably in like their club area where they just put some plywood in front of the general fans and called it a club. So they probably do have some suites in their latest renovation. I haven't been there in a couple of years, but yeah, Curry will be there. So
maybe it just means it's the section where you get a free sheet of cardboard to put below your feet.
Oh, that'd be nice. A nice bonus. John and DY, Vanessa will not let me go. She won't let me go to the game. So
what?
Let's go.
Why would you want? Block is too hot, man. I'm not going. I would not go. Cole, you would be. Can you imagine the party that they'll be having if they win that game, and then you have to be witness to that? No, thanks, man.
Yeah, you're probably right. So, but good thing that won't happen. So,
I walked out of Columbia, Missouri 2 years ago. I walked out of Lawrence, Kansas in 2004 when they broke the streak. I don't need any more of that. in my life. All right. Thank you to our friends at Holiday Distillery. Thank you to Alenko, Home Field Apparel. Appreciate Nick Springer behind the scenes. Enjoy your holiday. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody, and hope you have a lovely weekend of watching college football. We'll talk to you soon.